Hello, lovelies. Thank you for joining me as I march my way and my garden into spring. Last year, it was a pretty tiny space, but this year I have big plans, and only half of it'll get done this year because how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And this garden is certainly an elephant of a garden for me. Right now, I'm still in the planning stages, but I've pretty much decided to make it kind of a potager type garden where there are paths and everything is very geometrically laid out. Next month, I'll probably show you a visual plan of what the paths look like and what I'm planning for this year and next year. But this year, only half the space. No, probably less than half is going to be filled. Next year, this whole fenced-in area will be full. But for now, this will do. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beds, technically. And one lovely little Santa Rosa plum tree in the middle. I chose Santa Rosa because it is self-fertile. It does better with extra pollinators, of course, but it's self-fertile, so it'll give me plums just by itself. And I planted it right in the middle of the garden because that just seemed like the right place to plant it. I chose a plum tree because this is the Lee Tree channel where we're growing an authentic life. And for those of you who don't know, Lee is the family last name, and it is the same word for plum. So it seemed fitting to plant a plum tree in the middle of the garden and let it grow there. So that is what I chose to do. I decided to add a wattle fence around my plum tree, partially because I love wattle fences, partially because I wanted my children to have a visual barrier of where they can and cannot walk next to the tree. They're so easy to make, and you're basically just using scraps from around the yard. I have a video about how to make simple wattle fences like this. If anybody wants to check it out, I'll have it linked in the description down below. But they're really fun. You just kind of weave long, thin, flexible branches in between sturdier ones, and then just keep going until it's as tall as you want, and trim off the tops of your stakes. It just gives it a nice cottagey, handmade, crafted feel to it. And it's so simple. So I didn't have enough of my own homemade compost this year to do all the beds, but I did get a decent amount of compost on a lot of the beds, and I'll buy some more and add it to places that are a bit thin or haven't gotten any. And in the future, we'll have more, I'm sure. Compost is one of those things that you put a lot into it and you never get quite as much out as you would like. And you have to be really intentional with it. It seems like one of those kind of things that should just be a side project. But getting it to work out right is always a lot more work than you would anticipate. So eventually, this space will be all symmetrical with matching beds on each side, or rather in each quadrant, I suppose, radiating out from that central plum tree. But because the whole space isn't ready yet, I have this one long bed over here. It had a lot of grass in it. People complain about weeds. Honestly, I don't care too much about the weeds, but the grass is the worst. Grass is so hard to get rid of, especially really bad grasses like quack grass and wiregrass and, crabgrass and all the other nasty grasses. This is not grass, however. This is onions that I grew from seed. You may have seen pictures of I started them back in January. And it's my first time growing onions, so I'm pretty excited. There's a lot more onions than I initially realized. So I'm having to go around and find extra places where I can tuck onions in, where they won't be a problem. Onions are actually really, really good in the garden because they deter a lot of your pests, as does garlic and chives. But you have to be careful where you plant them, because some plants don't really get along well with onions and garlic, like beans and peas. So you don't want them too close together. This bed also had a lot of grass in it. We have this grass here that's, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's really hard to get out. I got a huge pile of wood chips in, and I've wood chipped all the paths, so it's easy to see where you should and shouldn't walk, although the toddler is still having a difficult time with it. We may choose to rake it out later, I'm not sure. It's a bit hard on the knees, and the children complain that it pokes their feet. Now, here, you may wonder what I'm doing. If you're guessing a wattle fence, you'd be wrong. It's not another wattle fence. This is my bean trellis going up. Same pieces that I used last year, just in a new place. Anyway, back to that not a wattle fence that I was talking about. That is actually going to be supports. Supports for my cabbages. Because if you've ever tried to grow any kind of cabbage, you've probably experienced cabbage white mothworms, which if you have ever grown any kind of cabbage related food, you know that they will just demolish them in no time. So this year, I'm protecting all my beautiful little Napa cabbages with netting over these supports. Well, that's all for this month. Thanks for joining me as I get my garden all ready for spring. It is officially spring now, and I cannot wait for the things to come. Don't forget to come back next month and join me for more gardening goodness. See ya.